Hello. It's a little stormy right now. Hoping to see if there's any comments coming in here in a second. Um, it's kind of awkward. I can't see if anybody's watching right now, which probably means that I'm not that nobody is at the moment. Um, we have a viewer. Hello, viewer. My name is Toby Vigneau. I'm a bass player at the Santa Fe Symphony. And hello, Santa Fe Symphony Orchestra and Chorus, also known as Catherine Nunn. I see your little greeting. So I believe this is getting going pretty well. Um, I'm not one for speaking like in public in the first place. So just sitting here and looking at myself in practically in a mirror is kind of awkward and a little intimidating. But no pressure. Anyways, um, so yeah, I've been playing with the Santa Fe Symphony since I think let me see, it's been since December um, 2018, and so it's been almost wait no December 2017. So it's been almost 3 years now. So it's been good. Tish Costello says hello. Hi Rob, good to see you. Glad you're tuning in. Um, it might be a little noisy because if you're watching this live, you know that it's kind of a storm is starting to brew in. Uh, well, I don't know if that carried, but that was a pretty big thunder clap right there. Anyways, so I've been playing for about 2.5 years with the Santa Fe Symphony when they last had the bass audition, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been one of the um, most important things that I've been doing these past couple of years in my musical development. I'd say I'm very fortunate that I get to play with such a fun group, with such a great group of musicians, especially with such a fun bass section. Um, really appreciative of them all. And um, so yeah, I guess I could go into sort of how I've been like how long I've been playing bass for. I've been playing bass since I was about 10. Um, so that's been about 8 years, and um, you know, I've enjoyed every second of it that I get to play my bass. So um, before that, I played a few other. Okay, Toby, get closer to the mic or speak a little louder. All right. Um, as I said, this kind of weird setting, so I'm going to pretend that my little living room here is like a nice big auditorium, and I hope this is a little better. I hope you all can hear me a little better. Um, anyways, so that shout out to my dad for his comment, and a little closer. Is this better? Or let me know in the comments when it's loud enough. Let me know. Hello, hello. Is this good? Is this good? Better, better, better. Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. So, um, wow, this should be a little interesting. I guess I should have noticed when the squeak of the chair was a little louder than my voice. So, uh, anyways, um, I've been involved in music, obviously, growing up with um, my parents, as my parents. Um, like I've been involved with music since a pretty young age. I started violin when I was 5, um, and I've been playing one or two instruments continuously since then. Uh, there was a time when I had to balance between 3 instruments because I played bassoon and piano at the same time that I was playing bass, and it was getting a little tricky. Um, obviously it was a lot of fun to have that, that diverse of a palette of musical tonality and everything. But it was a little tricky to balance schedules with it. So, um, anyways, I'm sort of I it looks like there might be enough people here for me to start delving into a couple of these questions that I was given. Um, as I was saying about growing up in a musical family, people might be wondering if there was a lot of pressure to start playing an instrument. Um, and I guess early on, it wasn't so much pressure as it was just like a thing that I did. It was like, okay, obviously you're going to do this. It wasn't like, um, I don't want to say I didn't have a choice in the matter because I'm happy that it happened. But this is very awkward to go about because my parents are just sitting in another room on the live stream, and and I gotta frame this in the right way, obviously. Um, so I started on violin when I was 5 and piano when I was 7, and I guess during that time the pressure really came for me to practice because I didn't really enjoy playing those instruments. Um, it was always like, you know, they were sort of stepping stones for me to do other things with my musical career, mainly getting involved in bass playing. I sort of had this, I don't know, this weird vision that I was gonna play bass. Like when I first started playing violin, it's like, well, obviously I'm gonna play the bass, and I can't really explain why that happened. It might have something to do with the fact that, like, within the first few weeks of me playing bass, one of my dad's close friends, Dave Anderson, who is the principal bass player of the Louisiana Philharmonic, I believe. Uh, Parents say, we are listening, only say nice things about your parents. Yes, I need a place. I need a place to live. So I'll be very careful with my phrasing. Anyways, um, this guy Dave Anderson. I mean, he's so much more than just a principal of a bass section. He's written. He's a composer. Just a great diplomat for the bass community, and it's. Anyways, so I saw him. He came to our house a few weeks after I had started playing violin, and he has this giant Prescott bass, which is like, I don't know how to describe it. There's big basses that are hard to get around, and then there's one of these. So it was just this really rich, dark sort of tone, and I got to just kind of stand in front of it and let its power waves start kind of, you know, impacting me like an earthquake. And I think I thought like, oh wow, that's pretty dang cool. I want to be able to do that with my instrument, and playing a little tiny 1/8 violin, that wasn't really cutting the chase for me. But I knew I had a path, a ways to go before I started bass. So I stuck with violin for about 5 years, and then at that point, actually, the symphony bassist Frank, who was my first teacher, he reached out to my mom and told her that he had like this 10 size bass, and he knew that I wanted to play the bass. So we're very fortunate to have that transition kind of take place then, and get going with all that. So I'm very thankful that I didn't have to stick with violin for too long. Uh, Anyways, another question that I have regarding my musical family is there a piece of chamber music you would love to perform with your parents that you have not yet played? Um, you know, there's a lot of the thing about bass is it's not exactly the ideal instrument for playing chamber music. It's basically the most ideal instrument to play for playing all music because you can do at least a little bit of everything, if not a ton of some certain things, like obviously playing in a symphony or doing jazz music or bluegrass, all that sort of stuff. It's a really great instrument to explore, um, you know, all these different genres. But chamber music is not exactly one of the most. Bass is not. It's not used very much in chamber music. There's like a few key pieces like the Trout Quintet by Schubert and the Prokofiev Quintet, which, off the top of my head, that's the only major piece I know of that you could say is for a chamber ensemble that actually features viola, oboe, and bass all in it. I guess you could also, I mean, no, that doesn't. Gosh, I see. I'm able to count these pieces on my hands because, they're like the only times we get featured in this music. But it's either like you're with viola, and then there's the occasional times you're with viola and oboe, but it's only Prokofiev Quintet's the only one I can think of. Hi, Jackie. Thank you so much for your comment. Missing you. Anyways, we try to get around this sort of problem by doing a lot of transcriptions of like Baroque trio sonatas and other sorts of stuff. And actually, the other day we were reading some Baroque trio sonatas, and we wanted to get into the Bach trio sonatas, but unfortunately it looked like we were missing the bass part or something. So right now, if I have an answer to that question of any piece that I have yet to play with my parents, it would probably be that one, because that's Bach is pretty good composer. Anyways, let me see. Sorry, I was just trying to catch up on the chat a little bit. Like I said, the cool thing about bass isn't necessarily that you play a lot of chamber music. It's more that you're playing with, you can play classical music outside of chamber music, like, playing in orchestras, Baroque ensembles, all that sort of stuff. And you can also play other, I guess you could call it newer forms of music, like jazz. I do a lot of jazz with my grandfather, who I don't know if he's listening right now. It'd be cool if he were here, so I could say hi to him. But I see him occasionally. Usually once a week we get together with our masks on and play some jazz. Hello, Jackie Erickson. Oh yeah, Placitas. That was a really fun concert. That was one of the times when we did some arrangements of some Baroque music and put it to an ensemble with my parents and their colleague at UNM, Carmelo, who is the violin professor, and we also all played our own little solo works and stuff. That was pretty fun. Anyways, going on to my dad comments, don't forget all the great bass concertos. Well, it depends on your definition of great. If you are comparing it to, say, the Brahms Violin Concerto or the Dvorak Cello Concerto, there are no great bass concertos. But if you want to count the bass concertos that do get played once every couple decades in the United States in an actual performance, we have about 5 of them. So further proving my point about chamber music. And if you're going into bass, you should be expecting to play in an orchestra or doing jazz music and other cool American music. One question here is, what developed your love of jazz, and who is your favorite jazz performer? Definitely my love of jazz kind of stemmed from my grandfather, because he's a pretty dang fine jazz pianist. And that sort of was really the big one for that was the biggest influence for me in starting my jazz endeavors. But lately it's gotten a lot stronger. For a while it was like, okay, cool, yeah, I can play some cool jazz stuff with my grandfather. But after starting to delve into the magic of streaming apps, I found a lot of really cool jazz music that's out there. So they ask who your favorite jazz performer is. Definitely the biggest idol I probably have as a bass player is this guy Jaco Pastorius, who was the bass player for this jazz fusion group called Weather Report in the 70s. And he died really young, but he was like the most virtuosic electric bass player there's ever been. He was pretty fantastic. Outside of that, there's some great upright jazz players like you think of Ray Brown, Ron Carter. Um, I like this guy Dave Holland, who's this British dude who plays really intriguing solos. Um, and obviously, you got to mention the just not just bass players because they aren't the only ones who play jazz. Um, I really like Wayne Shorter's one of my favorite saxophone players. And then the second part to this question is, do you think you'll ultimately perform jazz more than classical at some point in your life? I don't know. That's not really what I'm. That's not really the career path I'm setting for myself. I'm more leaning towards the classical realm. I just sort of feel like jazz is more like a fun sort of thing that I can um, figure out on my own, I guess, and enjoy on my own time, and do a little more with what I want there. Whereas classical is a little bit more of like a career track. I enjoy them both equally, but in different ways. And studying classical is more what I'm thinking of. But there could be a point where, I mean, who knows? Keep your options open, I guess. Another question here from Nancy Rowland is that goes off of this: what are your long-term career plans? Do you see yourself leaving New Mexico at some point? To answer the second part of that question, I was planning on leaving for the fall semester because I got accepted into the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia, and that was where I was planning to continue studying bass at with Hal Robinson, the principal of the Philadelphia Orchestra and former principal bass of the New Mexico Symphony, funny enough. But obviously, I cannot say how much longer I will be in New Mexico for. I guess at least for the next like few months and through December, because we're not going to be going out to Philadelphia because they've moved. Curtis has moved its entire semester to be online, and you know, I'm hoping that there's some opportunities I get with the Santa Fe Symphony to have music stuff to do in the fall. Right now it's a little how do you say, barren in the musical world, but I'm hoping that it gets itself a little fixed. Long-term career plans, the most definite career plan that I'm aiming for is to get to play in a really fine orchestra, hopefully as like a principal maybe. That's it's ambitious, obviously, but it's something that I'd really love to do. Thank you, Jackie. Yeah, I was pretty excited to get started there at Curtis, but there's more important things concerning us right now. So, anyways, going off the pandemic, a very light topic. There's a question here saying, how are you handling the absence of sports during the pandemic? Baseball just started yesterday, which is, that's cool. It gives you 4 hours of stuff to do during the day that you otherwise would probably be just sitting around and being bored. But up to this point, obviously, with no sports happening, I've been just I don't know. I've been trying to find new hobbies. It's probably good to get away from the sports though, because I'm seeing how time consuming it is. You already play in an excellent orchestra. Yes, I do. The Santa Fe Symphony is a fantastic orchestra. I'm not taking anything away from it. It's just I want to see where else I can go. New Mexico is fantastic, but I want to see if there's other places that I can check out in my life. Hi, Andrea. Good to hear from you. Anyways, what I was talking about, the absence of sports. It says, what has kept you busy? I've been doing a lot of practicing. I've been going to Robertson's violin shop a lot to just kind of hang out there. They have a lot of cool equipment that they let me use. Um, and, you know, I actually, they are letting me borrow a bass right now that I'll show real quick. Um, because I just got another bass, but it's in the shop right now. So they're letting me borrow this Trevor Davis bass right here, which is a fantastic instrument. Yeah. Something interesting is that's not the only bass I have in this room right now. This is my old bass that, if you've been to Santa Fe Symphony concerts, this is likely the bass that you've seen me play on. This is a Chris Peterson. And what's really cool is about the bass is it's one of these weird it's a weird perk. There's a lot of weird perks about bass, like it's tuned in fourths instead of fifths, which all the other strings are in fifths. So I mean that's because like we have to use our whole hand just to like get a whole step. So it's not the most efficient instrument. But anyways, with this bass, I have my strings actually tuned into what we call solo tuning, where it's actually tuned up. It's tuned up a whole step higher than an orchestra bass. So I don't know if you're watching the archive of this, you might be able to go back and sort of check out the difference between those two tuning systems, and I mean, it's kind of weird that we do scordatura tuning in bass. We're like the only instrument that does that, but we play with higher tuning whenever we're playing solo repertoire, which is very rarely, but it's a lot easier if you have two basses, then you don't have to keep changing out your strings. And honestly, I'm not sure exactly the reason why we do it. Supposedly it helps you project more. I guess the sound is a lot brighter, but it's just a weird bass thing. Also, another weird bass thing is the extension, which is this little contraption up here. So you see it's tuned chromatically. As I remove these, it goes a half step lower. And the reason for that is because the bass is tuned in fourths, we have our strings are G, G, D, A, and E. But in a lot of repertoire, composers just write for the cellos, the basses to play exactly what the cellos are doing. And the cello's lowest string is a C. So it would sound kind of weird to hear a scale coming from your low string section but what the extension allows us to do is to be able to play exactly an octave below the cellos. So we don't feel like we're losing something when we have to jump up an octave. Also, it helps fill out the orchestra more, and usually it helps the bass open up a little bit. So, got a couple pieces here. What is your dream piece to play in the symphony? That's a good question. My favorite stuff that I've done has mostly been like Beethoven and Mahler and Brahms. I love playing their music. But lately I've been big on Beethoven stuff. Um, and this year I was scheduled that by the end of the year I would have played all of the Beethoven symphonies at least once. But unfortunately, uh, the current situation arose. And so I still have yet to play the 8th and Ninth symphonies of Beethoven. Um, and they're both, they're both fantastic. Obviously, everybody talks about the Ninth, but I really like the 8th symphony. But I'd say the dream piece is probably the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven. Also, Mahler 9 is another fantastic piece that I haven't played. Brahms 1, Rachmaninoff 2, 1. There's a lot of pieces, but I guess the one to get on my bucket list right now is probably Beethoven 9. I hope to play that in the near future. Jim Martinez asks, have you tried tuning in fifths? I have not tried tuning in fifths. I know there's Joel Quarrington in Canada plays in fifths tuning. He actually, I think he won. He was awarded the position of, I don't know, principal in one of the big orchestras in Canada, and he won it playing in fourths tuning. But then a little later, he decided to change his bass's tuning. So then he had to basically learn an entirely new instrument when he was like in his 40s or something, it seems insane. I guess it's worth trying. I know Jean-Luc Matan, who's the principal of the New Mexico Philharmonic, has in the past used fifth tuning. It's just really, it seems so hard, but I've heard it might make the bass resonate more. But I mean, I might try it at some point. It seems kind of cool. Andrea says, I was hoping you would say Mahler. The thing is, I've played a lot. I have played a lot. I've played more Mahler than probably most people my age, just simply because of the opportunities that I've been fortunate enough to get. I've played, let me see, 1, 2, 4, 5, and 7. So that's like most of them. So, being able to play all of them is cool. Harry asked, is the cat going to make an appearance today? Well, our big cat might. Hold on, let me get him. So, in the last live stream, you saw our kitten, Quincy. This is our not so... Oh. I guess I shouldn't have done that. That's Marley. I guess he didn't want me to wake him up from his nap. He's going right back to where he was. But there's a kitten right here. Yeah, my mom's bringing our kitten here. Here we go. Little alligator, he's biting my fingers. He's a little more feisty today. Ow.
Be nice.
Yeah, so it's kind of, yeah, go ahead and take him. He's kind of, likes to eat me. But our other guy is not the most fond of him. So whenever I pick him up when the kitten is near, he gets pretty upset. So yeah, there's a cat shout out for you. Anyways, continuing on with dream pieces to play in orchestra, I got to kind of look at the schedule for the symphony in 2021, and there's a couple really cool pieces and just programs we're doing. Like in March, we're playing a work by Augusta Reeve Thomas, who's fantastic, and we're also playing Appalachian Spring, which are both like, Appalachian Spring is one of my favorite pieces, just period. So looks like a fantastic concert. I hope that I'm available to play it. And in April, we're playing Stravinsky Symphony of Psalms, which, anything. There's another dream piece to play is Rite of Spring. I had a weird experience at Aspen last summer where I was supposed to I kept getting rotated in and out of this one orchestra, and then they'd throw me into the contemporary ensemble and stuff. And anyway, so one of the times I got rotated out, the orchestra that I was in was playing Rite of Spring, and I was pretty upset that I didn't get to play that. But anyways, back to the symphony. In April, we have the Symphony of Psalms scheduled, which is another fantastic work by Stravinsky. Super cool. Unfortunately, my mom will definitely not be able to play that piece because there's no violas. So I feel kind of bad for her for that. Thank you, Perry. So, yeah, it's a great, really fantastic season for the symphony. And so that's some of the that's some of the cool stuff that's going on in the future. Right now, I saw there's the symphony posted a really cool virtual premiere of a piece by I believe it was Ernesto Cordero. And I would have loved to have been a part of that, but they only used 2 bass players, so I wasn't a part of that. But one of the things that I've been doing in this whole pandemic time is I've been doing quite a few virtual performances. I mean, there's whether you consider posting videos of you playing, of you practicing to an Instagram page as a performance is debatable. So I won't really necessarily say that is one of the main things that I've been doing. But I also had a project where I collaborated with some of my colleagues, fellow scholars from Curtis. That was organized by one of the conducting students, who's an incoming student next year, where we all did a virtual performance of the ending of Mahler 2, which was pretty cool. I think you might be able to find a link for that on my page. I've also been doing a lot of recordings for this jazz project with some of my friends from the New Mexico Jazz Workshop. So I've been doing a bit of these virtual performances, and it's been, I wouldn't say it's not the same as really having a live audience, but it gives you some purpose to practice some things, which I find great. And another question being asked is, if it were up to me, what would an ideal program for a virtual performance be with the symphony? And I would say, oh gosh, well, I'll start with a little anecdote. I made a little recording project with a couple of my bass friends where we were doing this arrangement of the Dance of the Nights from Prokofiev Romeo and Juliet Suite. And we didn't have a click track, so the video turned out pretty awful. So first things first, to whoever is in charge of this whole thing, if we're going to be having virtual performances with the symphony, is get a click track if you're going to be doing it in that manner where everybody records a bit and get stitched together. So on that note, if I were to suggest anything, it would probably be something that's pretty metronomic, so it would be easy to set a click track. And so some things that come to mind might be like the Bach orchestral suites. I know that's not really like a symphonic piece, but it's pretty straightforward in terms of how to play it. There's some other like do some Copeland probably with a click track. That would be super cool. Um, like Copeland Symphony 3 or something like that. That would be real fun. But in this hypothetical, that's being said, it is a hypothetical, so it's not necessarily up to me. My dad asks if I can play something, and I guess I could play something. Will sound best close to the mic. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I could do a little demonstration of the differences between these two instruments. And I guess I'll start out with an example of what you might hear in an orchestra from the bass section. It might go a little something like this. It might be a little like. It's my dad's phone. I'll turn that off real quick. Please silence your cell phones during the performance. So, anyways, on a serious note, I'll play the recitatives from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, as they were some stuff that I was practicing a little earlier in the semester because we're planning on playing it, and also I've worked on them for some auditions. So this is about as cool of stuff as you can hear for the bass in an orchestral setting, but it's real fun. So just get into it. So, yeah, that's some cool orchestral stuff. That particular part is basically just, it's just cellos and basses at that point, so it's pretty cool to hear that stuff. There goes Dad for his phone. Before I get, I'll demonstrate something on this bass, but it looks like there's some more stuff in here. Oh, hi Anne. Glad to see you're on here. How do you think jazz work informs your classical work and vice versa? Or is it kind of separate compartments? Well, when it comes to jazz, it's like it's kind of like it's just, at least how I view it, is you just kind of steal from classical music, at least in your solos. Um, if you're working in terms of improvisation, it's mostly like you have to find what works well within a certain set of harmonic sequences. And so, if you know music that you like in the classical realm, and you've practiced how to phrase well over a certain like chord sequence, um, you know, that can help out with your jazz playing. And in terms of classical music, so it can help to sort of be a little more spontaneous with your interpretations, I guess, because jazz music is always like right on the spot. You have to make something up. So if you can, and the really best jazz artists make it sound like it was, like the music is just kind of timeless. Like it's like, oh yeah, it's always existed. It's kind of like, oh yeah, Mozart could have written that or something. So I guess if you sort of aim for that in your jazz playing, it can certainly elevate your classical playing. I feel. Hello, Maestro. Yeah, so it's kind of sad that we didn't, that didn't work out. But hopefully, I'm sure if it happens in the future, uh, you know, I would love to do it. I would make space in my schedule to do it. Um, anyways, so I'll do a little more playing here. I don't know if the mic can pick this up, but this bass kind of sounds really brash. But it's like a rubber band is getting pointed right at you, and like you're cowering in fear from its sound. Whereas that one's just like a nice mattress that you just lay upon. So, not to say this one is bad. It has its uses. It's an awesome instrument. It just sounds a lot more piercing. So another thing we do as bass players, because we don't have any good, not because we don't have a very wide gamut of repertoire to play, solo repertoire. We don't have a lot of solo unaccompanied stuff, especially not by the standard rate composers or whatever. A very common practice by bass players is just to steal Bach cello suites, and if they don't work in the key that they're initially written in, you just kind of you change it up. So the third suite is, but I guess that's hard for bass players. So you just play it in G instead of C. But I'm not going to play that. I'm going to play this, the G from the fifth suite, which is the suite that I've been playing the most recently. And if you saw the post from the Santa Fe Symphony earlier, I played the prelude from that suite, and this is which is the first movement of the suite, and this is the G, which is the final movement of that same suite. So hopefully this works out okay. So yeah, there's some J.S. Bach, and it's a lot of fun to play. Luckily, that one doesn't have any double stops, which are not so fun to play on the bass. All right, let's get back to these questions. Hello, Melissa. Could you comment on your process for when you memorize music? I mean, I don't know if I really have a process for memorizing it. It sort of just kind of happens. If you play a piece enough, like, I guess, and the more you just kind of get it in your ear, especially, I guess, if I have any sort of method, any like real method for it, it's mostly to like be able to really have defined sections for the piece. And so I guess just really understanding the importance of the transitions between those sections, but also obviously being really solid on like having the sections in your ear before you just go ahead and try playing without the music, I guess. I think I can give credit to maybe the Suzuki violin program for helping me with memorizing music, because it's not so based around just like reading music so much as it is like understanding and hearing it. So I think that helped in my development for me to like just be able to memorize pretty easily. Also, it's just like trying to play without music also is also very helpful. Cool. Well, we're getting pretty up there in terms of time. And so I guess I might want to wrap this up by thanking the Santa Fe Symphony for letting me be a part of this and sort of expose myself. This has been very nerve-wracking for me, but also pretty fun. I get to, be a little nostalgic for, deeper time, like further times back when I was, a kid. I get to look back at just growing up a little bit. These are fun questions to think about. Also, just to how fun it's been to play with the Santa Fe Symphony, and I really do miss being a part of the section. I wish we had, I definitely don't take for granted the time that the concerts we've had, and I'm really missing them a lot right now. Maybe it's just because I don't have a lot to do, but I don't think it's that. I think it's, it's just a fantastic group of people. Oh, Keith Huffer asks, who are some jazz bassists you admire? As I said earlier, definitely Jaco Pastorius is like the number one guy for me right now. I mean, since I discovered him, he's been like one of the more influential people. And also, obviously, some of the big idols like Ray Brown and Ron Carter, and just with their sense of time and their sound is fantastic. Dave Holland is like one of my favorites right now as well in terms of jazz playing. So yeah, there's some jazz bassists. You should give a shout out to all your bass teachers. Yeah, I'd love to shout out my bass teachers, because they're probably the outside of my parents, probably the most important people in my development as a musician up to this point. So I started out with Santa Fe Symphony bassist Frank Murray, who was really fantastic. Helped me get such a great foundation built, and it was a really great time studying with him. And after that, I studied for a couple of years with Mark Tatum, who's the former professor at the University of New Mexico, and he gave quite a bit of a different perspective from Frank, and it was a very valuable time as well. And then my current teacher, who I studied with after I started studying with after Mark is Albert Laszlo, who is also completely different from the other two, but he's been like, I don't know, he's kind of life changing for me. He's such a I don't know, very lucky that he retired out here to New Mexico of all places after teaching at Juilliard and Cincinnati Conservatory for so long. So really, I mean, I've had such fantastic people leading me all the way, and I hope to make them proud, I guess, in the future. Uh, I hope I have so far. I don't know if I have. But anyways, it's been a pleasure, and yeah, I look forward to getting to take part in whatever we do next year in the Santa Fe Symphony, and can't wait to get back with everybody if and when possible. So, all right, everybody, take care. Goodbye.